You arrive without announcement. No invitation, no warning. Yet the air bends around you, as if the world had been holding its breath for this precise moment. Streets stretch out before you in a silence that is not peace, but expectation. The buildings lean ever so slightly, as though they know your weight, as though they have waited years to see if you would truly come. You were once the one who knocked, the one who waited on thresholds with quiet hope. That version of you died somewhere between the lies you swallowed and the betrayals you carried in your blood. Now you do not knock, you simply appear, and reality adjusts. They feel it before they see you. In the subtle shifts, the way conversation stumbles mid-sentence, the way eyes search for exits that do not exist, it isn't because of your face or your voice or the sound of your steps. It is because you carry the kind of presence that precedes explanation, the kind of weight that reminds them of something primal and unspoken. Once they ignored you. Once you were easy to overlook. That time is gone. You have sharpened yourself against every closed door until you became the blade they fear to touch. The locks sense you. They do not surrender because of kindness. They open because they understand consequence. You have walked too far into the quiet corridors of your own making, crafted from pain and clarity, to ever be turned away again. What they call luck is simply the echo of what you have endured. Nights without end, where you learn to breathe under the weight of your own silence. Days where survival meant smiling in rooms that wanted you erased. You collected every wound like a currency until the price was paid in full. Now all thresholds part before you, and it feels less like victory and more like inevitability. A storm does not ask permission before it enters. A shadow does not beg the wall to receive it. You have crossed into the territory where arrival itself is the message. The corridors you step into remember you even if you have never been there before. They know the shape of your absence, and they fear its return. Some will pretend they do not see you. Some will smile, their hands steady while their pulse betrays them. They recognize something they do not have. The quiet mastery of someone who no longer needs to announce their intent. This is not arrogance. This is survival perfected. You have learned that in a world built on noise, the one who moves in silence holds the deepest control. The first time you feel it, the subtle shift in the air as the lock clicks open before you even touch it, you understand something essential. You are not here to be accepted. You are here because the structure itself has no choice but to let you through. And somewhere in the dark between these walls, they are already adjusting to your presence, knowing that once you have arrived, nothing will remain as it was. You were not born with this presence. It was purchased piece by piece, with a currency no one sees but everyone feels. You paid in hours stolen from your sleep, in warmth you turned away when it was offered, in the steady erosion of who you once thought you were. Before you knocked, you waited, you hoped, and each time, the silence on the other side of the door whispered the truth you hated, that you were forgettable, replaceable, powerless. Now, there is no knocking. The air shifts before you reach the threshold, as if the lock itself remembers your touch and chooses not to resist. But that choice was forged in fire. You have bled in rooms without light. You have smiled at enemies because you could not afford to let them taste your rage too soon. You learned to speak less because silence has a gravity that words can never match. There is a discipline and restraint that those who live only for victory will never understand. You've let people underestimate you, even invite their condescension, because their certainty made them sloppy. And in those moments, when they saw nothing but a shadow, You gathered the kind of leverage that cannot be taken back. The currency of power is not gold. It is not recognition. It is the ability to stand in the middle of a storm and know you do not need to move. Others build armies. You dismantle intentions. They hide behind titles and noise. You wear the stillness of someone who has survived without either. And you have survived things. You've walked away from promises because you knew the chains they came wrapped in. You've been betrayed in ways that carved your name into stone, not so the world could read it, but so it could not be erased. Every sacrifice became a brick in the unseen corridor leading here. Each decision to hold your tongue when speaking would have felt good. Each refusal to take the easy path when the hard one threatened to break you. You paid with comfort, with safety, with the right to belong anywhere but inside yourself. And somewhere along that road, the locks began to change. They stopped resisting not because you forced them, but because you became something they could not keep out. Now, when you approach, the air tightens. Conversations falter. The ones who used to stand in your way look down, not out of submission, but out of a quiet calculation they do not even realize they're making. They know you've been somewhere they haven't. They sense you've seen what they would never survive seeing. It is not intimidation they feel, but inevitability. You understand now that this was never about being welcomed. It was about becoming the kind of presence that space rearranges itself to accommodate. You didn't buy entry. You erased the concept of needing permission. And while others waste themselves trying to be remembered, you have already become the thing they cannot forget. They have been watching you longer than you've been aware of yourself, not the kind of watching that can be shrugged off as curiosity. This is older, sharper. The way predators measure distance before a strike, the way priests measure silence before a prayer. You used to mistake it for coincidence, the sideways glances, the lingering stares, the sudden quiet when you entered a room. Back then, you thought you were invisible. Now you understand. Invisibility was never yours. You were always the outline in their vision, the fracture in their calm. There are rooms you've never entered that still carry the sound of your name. Words passed like contraband, not because of what you've done, but because of what you might do. They hold private counsels about you without ever calling them that. Every question they ask is laced with another question they will never say aloud. And in those hidden conversations, they weigh your movements against their own survival. You are no longer a passerby in their story. You are the adjustment they make to their plans. At first, their gaze was a searchlight, invasive, stripping you bare in places you didn't know could be reached. You felt hunted. Every step, every breath cataloged. The Watchers weren't enemies, not exactly, but their eyes carried the same precision as a blade held just above the skin. And yet, something shifted. You began to notice the hesitation in their movements, the unspoken calculation before they spoke your name. Somewhere along the line, the direction of fear changed. It is not the loud fear of those who scream at shadows. It is quieter. A buried awareness that you move in ways they can't predict, that you carry a weight they cannot measure. You don't show them everything. You never will. But the little they've seen has been enough to rearrange the architecture of their perception. You have become a variable they cannot contain. The Watchers are not confined to faces you recognize. They exist in signals you intercept without wanting to, in the subtle architecture of the world that bends when you enter it. A door that shouldn't have been open is ajar. A meeting you weren't supposed to know about is canceled the moment you arrive. The surveillance is not just in their eyes. It's in the structure around you, shifting to account for your presence. They think they are studying you, but every glance they offer is another line in the map you are drawing of them. There is a strange intimacy in being the observed. They know your shadow before they know your touch, your silence before your voice. And you, in turn, know their tells. The shallow breath, the minute twitch in their fingers when your gaze meets theirs. They are drawn to you for the same reason they are wary of you, because you carry the possibility of undoing them without lifting a hand. And so, the watching continues, not as a passing act, but as an unbroken thread connecting every place you've been, every step you take, every room that shifts when you enter it. You no longer hide from their gaze. You let it linger, because in the deep exchange of looking and being looked at, you have already turned their watchfulness into your weapon. They do not open the door because they welcome you. They open it because they have no other choice. The metal in the lock knows the shape of inevitability, and it trembles before your touch. Long before you arrive, the air inside those walls changes, as if the very molecules remember what happened the last time someone tried to keep you out. You don't speak. You don't plead. You don't even move quickly. And yet the silence you carry presses harder than any fist against wood. It is the kind of silence that forces the mind to race ahead to its worst conclusions. That is where fear lives, not in the noise of confrontation, but in the quiet acknowledgement that the outcome is already decided. Once, you stood on the other side of those locks as an outsider, watching others pass through gates you could not touch. You learned then that force shatters the door, but leaves you empty-handed. Because power taken too loudly never lasts, you traded the roar for the whisper, the frantic push for the still weight of inevitability. People expect fear to come in waves, violent and sudden. Yours is different. It seeps slow and formless, finding the cracks in their resolve. And when it settles, they see you as the answer to a question they didn't dare ask aloud. They do not fear what you might do. Not exactly. They fear the version of themselves that you awaken. You are the mirror they cannot look away from, the reflection that strips away the illusions they've built to feel safe. In your presence, they remember the betrayals they thought they had buried, the lies they told themselves to survive. And suddenly, the walls they trusted feel paper thin. A person will open any door to end that feeling. They will hand you the key with shaking hands, tell themselves it was their idea, and avoid the truth, that you never asked for entry. You simply were not going to be denied. Fear is not the scream in the night. It is the low hum beneath their heartbeat when your shadow touches the threshold. It is the tightening in their chest when they realize that resisting you would cost them more than surrender. They will tell themselves they are letting you in to keep the peace, but peace is not your currency. The only exchange here is recognition, the silent contract between predator and gatekeeper. And once they recognize you, there is no unknowing. This is why the door yields. Not because it loves you, not because it serves you, but because it knows the consequence of pretending it can keep you out. The lock is not turning for you. It is turning for itself, desperate to survive what comes when you are kept waiting. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to explain. You arrive, and the air changes. The hinges loosen, the barrier folds, and in that instant they understand fear was always the key, but you were always the hand that held it. Some doors do not wait for your hand. They open the moment your shadow touches them, as if eager to expose what lies within. But you know the truth. Not every threshold is an invitation. Some are warnings. The air beyond them feels heavier. not because of what is there, but because of what it means for you to see it. You were not supposed to stand here. You were not meant to know these rooms exist, yet the hinges turn anyway, slow and deliberate, as though mocking the idea that you could ever look away. Inside, the light is wrong. It falls in angles that defy the shape of the room, as if bending around the truth it cannot fully illuminate. Papers on tables, faces in portraits, voices drifting between the walls. They are fragments of a design older than your arrival, a design that has been adjusting itself for centuries to keep people like you out. But now you are in it, and you feel the eyes of those who drew these blueprints, eyes that do not belong to the living, eyes that have seen you long before you had a name. The first betrayal is not what you find, but how quickly it rearranges you. Knowledge doesn't enter quietly. It forces its way in, rearranging the furniture in your mind until you no longer recognize the interior. Every detail is a splinter. Every truth is a blade. You feel the difference instantly. You are no longer moving through the world. The world is moving around you, adjusting its pace, recalibrating its locks. You carry something now, even if you can't yet name it. You remember the weaker version of yourself, the one who would have looked through the crack of a forbidden door and pulled away. That self is gone. The person standing here understands that retreat is no longer possible. What you have seen cannot be erased. What you have heard cannot be unspoken. The very air in this place has written itself into you. It is both gift and curse, and you know instinctively that those who watch from beyond this room, the unseen council of architects, are now calculating what you will do with it. Some doors stay locked because opening them shifts the balance. You have shifted it. You can feel the tension ripple outward, like concentric circles from a stone dropped in still water somewhere. Someone is already moving pieces against you. Somewhere else, another is preparing to welcome you. In this moment, you understand why the old myths warned against certain paths, not because they were impossible, but because they were irreversible. The room feels smaller now, not physically, but as if it is folding itself back into the walls, retreating from your presence, knowing it has given you what it came to give. You step out, but you are not leaving. You carry the room with you, its contents hidden behind your eyes, its weight pressed into your spine. And though the corridor ahead stretches into shadow, you sense that every door you pass will feel it too. The faint pressure of something that should never have been seen, now moving through the world, wearing your face. They speak of you before you arrive, not in the warmth of conversation, but in low, measured tones that suggest both caution and inevitability. Your name drifts through corridors you have never walked, slipping beneath doors you have never touched. You are not present, yet the air bends as if you already were. This is the shadow that walks ahead of you, not a reflection, but a silent envoy that carries your weight into rooms where you are still only an idea. It precedes you like a storm sent before the first drop of rain, announcing change to those who thought the day would stay ordinary. Once you were invisible. They forgot you even when you were standing in front of them. You learned the contours of silence, the art of being overlooked, the taste of doors closed too quickly. And in that invisibility, you built something they could not see, a spine forged from quiet humiliation, a mind sharpened in the dark. They thought absence meant weakness. It was preparation. Now, when your shadow enters a room, they don't remember the times they ignored you. They only feel the cold knowledge that they are no longer in control. This shadow is not wholly yours. It has been shaped by the mouths that spoke your name with their own agendas. They have exaggerated your victories, distorted your failures, stitched together a myth from pieces of truth. Some of it you planted deliberately, strategic lies left like traps for the careless. Some of it was born without your consent, bred in the minds of those who feared you enough to invent a reason for their unease. And so the shadow has grown into something more than you, a living construct of whispers and half-believed warnings. It shields you. It walks into hostile spaces before you do, softening resistance, bending spines before your eyes meet theirs. It makes people hesitate, stumble, second-guess, but shadows are fragile things. A lie repeated too often can grow teeth. There are those who would weaponize it against you, turning the myth into a cage. They will speak in your name, claiming to know your intentions, twisting your silence into guilt. You understand this, and so you walk carefully, letting the shadow speak just enough, but never everything. There is power in being preceded by fear, but there is danger in letting fear become your only language. You have learned to use it sparingly, like a blade meant for precision, not chaos, because you know what waits if you lose control. A shadow can outrun you. It can lead you into battles you never chose, and once it moves too far ahead, it may open doors you weren't ready to walk through. Still, you cannot disown it. It is the proof that you exist beyond the boundaries of flesh and presence. Long before you arrive, they feel you. Long after you leave, they still do, and in the space between, the gap where only your shadow moves, their loyalty, their fear, their betrayal, and their surrender are decided without you ever lifting a hand. There is a door inside you that no one else can see, not made of wood or steel, but of something far older. It has no hinges, yet it groans in your chest like stone under strain. Every step you've taken in this life has brought you closer to it, though you've pretended not to notice. You've walked past its frame 1,000 times, tracing the edges in thought, but never reaching for the handle. Because you know, you've always known. Once it opens, it will not close again. You have kept it locked through war and temptation, through the gnawing ache of injustice and the sweet pull of revenge. Not because you are afraid of what waits beyond, but because you are afraid of what will be left of you after you step through. You've felt its pull in moments of betrayal, when trust shattered like glass beneath a stranger's boot. You've tasted it, when someone dared to mistake your silence for weakness, leaning too close, thinking they were safe. They didn't hear the door hum in response. They didn't feel the temperature drop. Others live their lives at the mercy of outer doors. Job interviews, locked gates, guarded hearts. You mastered those years ago, but this door, this one, does not yield to charm or patience or keys passed down from dead mentors. This one listens. It measures you. It waits for the moment you stop pretending you have anything left to lose. And in that moment, the lock will turn on its own. You've built your life on precision, on restraint that others mistake for passivity. You speak less, move slower, calculate longer than anyone else in the room. But restraint is not the absence of force. It is the caging of it, and the thing behind that door. It has grown restless in the dark. It has been sharpening itself in silence, feeding on every slight you've endured, every humiliation you swallowed whole instead of spitting back in their faces. There are days you stand before it and feel your pulse sync with its quiet rhythm. Days when the weight of control feels like a chain around your throat, and the temptation to turn the key is almost too much to bear. You know that once it swings open, there will be no going back to the measured steps, the calculated pauses. There will only be the raw, unrestrained version of you that no one, not even you, has met in full. The irony is, Those who push you toward it will never see it coming. They think they are winning when they chip at you, when they twist the knife and smirk in the dark. They have no idea that each cut is not weakening you, but thinning the last layer between the world and what waits behind the door. One day you will stop walking past it. You will stop weighing the consequences, and when it opens, it will not be a step you take. It will be a release, the kind the world cannot unsee. One day, there are no doors left, no hinges to creak open at your approach, no thresholds to cross. The corridors you once walked have dissolved into open space, and the maps others used to track your movements are useless. They can't predict you anymore. They can't prepare. The locks that once defined you, the ones you conquered, the ones that fell in silent surrender are gone. You are no longer the one who enters. You are the place they fear to stand. You remember when you used to wait outside, when you felt the weight of being denied, when each closed door whispered your insignificance back at you. Those days trained you in patience, in reading the tremors in the air before a handle turned. They taught you that entry was never about permission. It was about inevitability. But now, inevitability has no shape. It doesn't knock, it doesn't step through. It consumes. Without barriers, you become something else entirely. Power without boundaries is not freedom, it's exposure. Every shadow recognizes you. Every watcher knows you've reached the point they hoped you'd never find. And in their eyes, there's something new. Not just fear, but calculation. They no longer wonder if you can enter. They wonder if you will destroy what's inside. You carry the betrayal of every hand that once kept you waiting. You've not forgotten the voices that mocked your patience, the eyes that measured your worth in distance kept. Those voices are quieter now, but their echoes linger, and you've learned how to turn echoes into weapons. This is the stage where your silence is more dangerous than their loudest threats, where absence becomes an act of war. In this place, doors are no longer symbols of power. They were always illusions, polite rituals to make the powerless believe they had control. Without them, the hierarchy collapses. The line between inside and outside dissolves, and you stand in both at once. You are the threshold. They don't invite you in, and they can't keep you out. They simply live in the awareness that you are already here. And yet, in this vast openness, there's a cost. When nothing is hidden from you, there is no sanctuary. Every secret is yours to carry, every room exposed, whether you want to see it or not. Knowledge bleeds into you like smoke through a broken seal, and some truths are heavier than walls ever were. You begin to understand that the final door was never in the world at all. It was in you. You can feel it now, locked deep in the marrow, the last place you have not crossed. It waits, patient as you once were, holding back the version of you that has no mercy left to give. And you know if that door opens, there will be no more thresholds in existence. No inside, no outside, only you and the quiet aftermath of everything you've chosen to let fall.